The sky over the village of Nkara was dark,
thick with clouds that carried not just the promise of rain but of fate. Villagers whispered as they passed the banks of the forbidden river, a twisting mist-covered stretch of water said to be haunted by ancient spirits. No one dared go near it unless desperation left them no choice. And desperation was exactly what led Teresa, the new wife of Lord Baco, to that cursed shore one stormy morning. Her stepdaughter, a quiet girl named Amara, barely 17, followed her without protest. She had always obeyed, even when the instructions were strange. Teresa's eyes were cold, and the tone in her voice was calm, too calm for what she was about to do.
Look at the water, Amara.
Do you see how still it is? They say the gods sleep during the rain. It is the only time you can approach without being taken.
Amara hesitated.
The stories. The bones found near the rocks. The eerie sounds villagers said they heard at night. But she nodded.
Teresa gave her one last look, no sad.
No regret.
Only ambition.
And then with a swift push, she sent Amara tumbling into the forbidden river. The water swallowed the girl whole. But the river did not take. Amara's body, battered but breathing, was carried downstream far past where any villager dared to walk. Her limbs were limp, her mind adrift. And then she saw him. A figure floating face down in the reeds. A man, older than her by just a few years, blood staining the back of his robe. His crown, yes, a small, jeweled crown lay barely clinging to his head.
Something inside Amara screamed.
He is not dead. She clawed her way through the water,
Shocking Gombris and fear.
and turned him over. His eyes opened barely. And just before darkness took her again, she heard him whisper a name.
Kero.
They woke beneath the roots of a giant tree, hidden by time and leaves.
Amara blinked.
The rain had stopped. The man was breathing shallowly. She ripped cloth from her soaked dress, pressing it against the wound on his back. He groaned. "Don't move," she said. He stared at her. "Who are you?" he asked weakly.
No one important. You need rest.
But even as she said the words, something in her blood began to burn.
Not fear, something else. Something deeper.
She had just been left to die, and instead, she was saving someone who clearly carried more value to the world than she ever did. It should have filled her with bitterness. But it did not. Not yet. Back in the village, Teresa returned alone. She told Lord Baco that Amara had gone missing. That perhaps the spirits had taken her. Lord Baco, a man more concerned with political survival than his own daughter, did not ask further. Teresa smiled as she stood before her mirror that night.
Soon, with Amara gone,
her own son would be the sole heir. The path to power was clear. But what she did not know, what no one knew, was that Amara was still alive. And that the boy she saved was no ordinary noble. 3 days later, in a hidden cave along the river,
Amara built a fire. The stranger Prince Kero,
though she did not know his full name, yet began to recover. He spoke little at first, only enough to say he had been attacked. That someone close to him had betrayed him. That he remembered a knife.
A whisper, then fallen into the water.
Amara listened. She did not tell him her story. Not yet. The words were too painful. Instead, she asked about his life. He did not answer much. But one night, he asked her, "Why did you save me?" She paused.
Because they could not let you die.
Even if the river wanted us both. Cairo stared at her for a long time. Then maybe the river gave me a gift. In the days that followed, they formed a quiet bond. He taught her sword stances, basic ones. She taught him how to find food, how to read the currents of the forbidden river. It was peaceful. But peace never lasts. One evening, as the sun dipped low,
Kero collapsed again.
His fever returned. The wound had festered.
Amara panicked.
She remembered the old herbalist who lived on the edge of Nkara. A woman people feared because she had once been exiled for speaking to spirits. It was a risk. But Amara took it. She covered Cairo with leaves and moss.
Whispered a prayer to the river.
And ran.
Back in Nkara.
Whispers began to grow. Someone had seen a girl matching Amara's description near the woods. The herbalist had spoken of a shadow carrying a man's weight. Teresa heard it all and froze. She had killed the girl. She was sure of it. But if she had not? If she was still alive? And if she had seen anything?
Savait Soméon.
Her plan would unravel. The heir must not be found.
The prince must remain dead.
Teresa ordered her men to burn the woods. To find the girl.
Tout silence the past.
As Amara reached the edge of the village, she saw the smoke first. Her heart dropped. They were searching. She turned, clutching a bag of herbs, and ran.
Back through the night. Back through the rivière mist.
Back to the boy who now held more than a prince's fate. He held the key to unraveling everything she thought she knew about who she was. The forbidden river had taken nothing. It had only begun to give. The cave was colder than before. Amara slipped through the ferns and moss-draped stones. Her breath ragged, arms cradling the precious pouch of herbs. The fire she would left behind had dwindled to embers.
Casting soft orange glows on Kéro pâle.
Sweating face.
Kéro.
She whispered, falling to her knees. He stirred, eyes half-lidded.
Baroli conçu.
Amara opened the pouch and crushed the herbs between two stones, pouring water over them, whispering the old chants the herbalist had forced her to repeat. Give me strength, river. Please do not take him.
She murmure. She pressed the bitter-smelling past into the wound.
Ignoring his groans, tears slipping down her cheek. She covered him with the remaining furs, then sat by his side all night, her knife clutched in her hand, not for protection, but for hope. If he died, she would carve the truth into stone. She would let the river know that she tried. At dawn, he opened his eyes. The fever had broken. Amara, he croaked. She looked up, exhausted, but smiled. Still here, his fingers found hers. Weak, trembling but warm. You saved me again, she did not answer. Just held his hand tighter.
Far across the woods.
Teresa stood beside the burning tree-line, the air thick with smoke and fear. Her soldiers scoured the underbrush. But there was no body. No proof. She clenched her jaw. The girl had survived. Somehow. And if the prince was still alive, if he reached his people, her plan would burn faster than the forest she now torched. She summoned her most loyal warrior. A man named Oren, whose silence was as deadly as his blade. Find her, she said. I do not care if it takes weeks. If the prince breathes, cut the breath from his throat. And as for the girl, I want her drowned.
Let the river finish what he started.
Oren bowed once and vanished into the smoke. By the river, Cairo's strength returned slowly. Each day, he sat a little longer.
Spoke a little more.
And Amara began to laugh again.
She forgot the bruise, Teresa once left on her arms. Forgot the sting of betrayal.
She watched Cairo carve symbols into the cave wall, his language, ancient and noble, and realized she did not want to go back to the village. Not ever. But peace, as before, would not stay. One evening, while hunting near the edge of the forest, Amara saw movement. She froze. Not animal. Not villager. Men. 4 of them. Armed. Methodical. She dropped the rabbit she would just caught and ran silent and fast as her legs would carry her. When she burst into the cave.
Brittle, Kéro stood waiting.
They are coming, she said.
Your enemy.
Or mine. Maybe both. He reached for his sword, still clumsy with it. But better now. We have to leave, she said. He nodded. And then, almost to himself, he added, there is a place.
I don't pass.
My father once showed me when I was a boy.
Amara blinked.
Your father.
The king. Kéro hesitated.
Yes. I am Prince Cairo of the 2nd house of Zubari.
The rite fut l'air to the ivory throne.
The cave went quiet. And for the first time, Amara saw him not as the broken man she had dragged from the reeds, but as the prince every story whispered about. And yet, her first thought was not fear. It was not awe. It was anger. Then why were you alone? She asked. Why was a prince bleeding in the river? He looked down.
Because someone in the palace wanted me dead.
And they were close enough to succeed. They moved before dawn. With only a pack of herbs, a blade, and a name that now meant something far more dangerous. They followed the river upstream, past rocks covered in glowing moss, through trees that had not been touched by men in decades.
Kero led the way this time.
Leaning on a staff, eyes sharper than she would ever seen. But Amara noticed the change. He was not just surviving anymore. He was remembering who he was. And that meant he had somewhere to return to.
Alive beyonder.
2 days into their journey, they found the hidden stone gate half buried.
Covered in root.
Cairo pressed his palm against the symbol carved in the center. The stone shifted. A path opened. And Amara felt it in her bones. Once they stepped through, nothing would ever be the same. I can't go with you, she said quietly. Cairo turned. What? I am not royalty. I am not even a daughter by blood. I was thrown into a river by the only family I had. You. You are going to reclaim a throne.
You saved me.
Twice. You have more royalty in your heart than those who wear crowns. But I do not belong there. He took a step closer. Then where do you belong?
Amara.
She opened her mouth, but the scream cut her off. A blade shot past her ear, lodging into the stone.
Orin.
He had found them. Cairo drew his sword. But his stance was weak. Orin stepped from the trees. Face blank. You should have drowned.
Girl, Amara pulled her own blade.
You should have burned. They fought in the narrow space between roots and stone. Orin was fast, deadly. But Amara had the river's wildness. She did not move like a soldier. She moved like someone who had survived being left to die. She slashed low. He dodged.
Kero struck me said.
Orin turned his blade toward the prince, but Amara was faster. With a shout, she tackled the assassin into the riverbank. They rolled down the muddy slope and into the forbidden river itself. Cairo screamed her name. The water closed over them. But this time, the river did not want blood. This time, the river listened. Amara's knife found Orin's chest.
She drove it in, deep.
As the spirits whispered through the currents. And when she surfaced,
Brit and shaking.
She was alone.
Alive. And the river.
Calm. They left that place before nightfall. By morning, Cairo introduced her to the rebels hidden deep within the mountains, loyalists to the crown, waiting for their prince's return. Amara watched as the boy she had saved stood taller than ever before. But she did not stand in his shadow. She stood beside him. And when he turned to her before entering the council tent, he said only one thing. The river did not take you. Because it was never supposed to.
The tracker moved like a shadow through the jungle.
Silent as breath, eyes sharp as the knife he carried. He had no name that villagers knew, only a reputation whispered like a curse.
The ghost of the red moon.
Teresa had paid him in gold and fear. Make it look like an accident, she had said. No witnesses. No trail, and now, he followed the faint path of broken branches and disturbed moss. The girl had been careful. Yes, but not careful enough. He would find her. And this time, the river would not get in the way.
Amara and Kero traveled at dawn.
Their movements slow but steady. Cairo's strength had not fully returned, but his spirit burned hotter than ever.
We can't stay hidden forever,
he said as they moved through the river's side trail.
A secret pass, the village d'arrêt not tread.
I know, Amara replied. But if we rush, you will die. And then everything will be lost. Cairo gave her a quiet look. You speak like someone who has lost before. I have, she did not say more. And he did not ask. But in her silence was a storm. They reached an abandoned shrine deep within the jungle built of black stone, carved with river glyphs so old they no longer had names. Amara had found it as a child, before Teresa entered her life.
Her real mother used to pray.
Whispering stories of a different bloodline.
A différent trousse.
Now, she prayed for something else. Time.
Kero leaned against the altar.
His breath slow. The dagger, he said.
Show me again.
Amara handed it to him. He turned it over in his hands. revealing a hidden chamber in the hilt. Inside a scroll, sealed with the royal insignia. His eyes widened. This proves it. This is my father's seal. His final orders, what does it say? He did not answer immediately. Instead, he handed it to her. Amara read the words, and her hands began to tremble. Because it was not just about the throne. It was about the one meant to protect it. Her name was written there. Not Amara, but a name she had not heard since her real mother died.
Abeni. Docteur of Faosobadel.
One of the bloodlines of the first river. A name that meant keeper of the waters. Far behind them, the tracker found the first sign. A piece of cloth snagged on a thorn.
Stenedwiz HRB Pastendash.
He crouched low, sniffed it, rubbed it between his fingers. She is close, he whispered. Then he turned toward the west, toward the shrine.
In the capital, King Jomo sat beneath the golden sun throne.
His crown newly forged. His enemies swiftly executed. But one thing disturbed his sleep.
The legend of the river.
His seers warned him.
If the girl lives, the river will turn against you.
If the prince breathes,
the throne will reject you. If the truth rises,
silence them.
Jomo roared.
All of them. And so the blood hunt began.
Amara stood at the river's edge.
Her reflection shifting in the current. Cairo came up beside her. You never told me, he said. I did not know for sure. My mother hid it. Said it was dangerous. And now I understand. The river did not spare me because I was lucky. It spared me because I belong to it. Because I am meant to wake it. Cairo stared at her. And what does that mean? She touched the river's surface and it shimmered. It means we do not run anymore. We rise, that night, Amara dreamed. She stood in the middle of the river, but the water was still. Clear. The spirits of the deep rose around her not as monsters, but as mourners. They bowed. One spoke in a voice like thunder wrapped in silk.
Doctor of blood. Keeper of truth. The waters return to you.
But the price is not yet paid. Then the river split and she saw Teresa standing on one bank.
And Jomo on the other.
Both had stolen. Both would pay. But she had to choose who to face first. When Amara woke, the tracker was already there. A blade at her throat. But before he could strike, Cairo launched himself at him. Weakened but fierce. The fight was brutal fast.
Silent, mercile.
Amara grabbed a stone and struck the tracker's head once. Twice, until he fell limp. Her hands were shaking.
Cairo bled again.
They collapsed beside each other.
Gasping, the river whispering behind them. You saved me, Cairo said. Smiling weakly.
She looked at the blood on her hands. No. We saved each other. The scroll in Cairo's hilt had one more name, one more order. Find the keeper. Find Abeni.
She will awaken the river.
Only then can the land be cleansed. The legends had never been about kings alone. They were about guardians. And now, the forbidden truth returned. The river had not been cursed. It had been waiting.
Amara woke before the sun. Cairo was still asleep.
His breathing steadier now. The fever had left him. But something darker hovered in the cave, the weight of choices they had yet to make. She stepped outside. The mist clung to the trees like silk.
Beneath her feet, the river whispered secret only the brave or the broken dared to hear.
She was not sure which one she was anymore. At the palace, King Jomo sat on the golden throne that had once belonged to his uncle, the throne Cairo was meant to inherit. He leaned forward as the tracker knelt before him.
Dusty from the road.
She moves swiftly, the man said. But I have seen her face. And I have followed her scent. Jomo's eyes narrowed. Then kill her before she speaks.
End the prince.
A pause. Jomo's voice dropped low. Make him suffer before he dies.
In the cave, Cairo stirred.
His voice was clearer now. I dreamt of fire, he murmured. And of you standing in it. Amara turned, startled. Was I burning? No, he said.
You were untouched. Like the flame knew you.
She looked away. The past had always followed her. but now it pressed against her back like a blade. "Who are you really, Amara?" She did not answer. Not yet. Instead, she handed him a bundle of roots.
Eat. You will need your strength.
That evening, they moved camp deeper into the cliffs along the river,
Amara knew à place the village Khaled the echoing bones.
where even trackers feared to tread. Cairo asked her how she knew such places. And she finally began to speak. "My mother died when I was 6, she said. I never knew her name. Only that she came from the capital. That she was important."
Royal.
Amara nodded.
Teresa mariée Maifater soon after.
"But she hated me. Said I carried curses in my blood." Cairo frowned.
And your fater.
Dead. Or disappeared. Some say he drowned in the river. Others say he ran, but you. Amara looked him in the eyes. "I do not know what I am.
Kero.
But I am starting to understand why the river did not take me." Far away, Teresa stood before a hidden shrine deep in the woods, one built long ago by those who served the old gods. She knelt in the mud.
Give me the girl's life.
She whispered.
I offer blood for silence.
She drew a blade across her palm and let it drip onto the stones. The wind howled.
From the shadow, the spirit of the river stirred.
The next morning, Amara and Cairo reached the echoing bones, a cavern carved into a cliffside.
Hidden behind a wall of ivy.
Inside, bones of beasts and men lined the walls.
Tangled with vine and dust. Kero lit a torch. This is where we hid. Amara shook her head.
This is where we prepare. She led him to a stone basin, filled with ancient markings.
Do you know what this is?
She asked. Cairo stared. No, it is part of the river's truth, she said. A mark left by those who came before us. The river does not just take. It remembers, and then she placed her hand on the stone and it glowed.
Kero stepped back.
What are you? But in his voice was not fear. It was awe. Amara turned to him.
Her voice steady now. I am the river's doctor.
Not by birth, but by survival. My mother was a priestess once. Cast out when she loved the wrong man. Who?
A prince, Kero froze.
Your uncle, Amara said quietly.
Thunder cracked outside.
As realization dawned, so did a new truth. Cairo and Amara were not just bound by fate. They were family, through legacy tied by the same blood that had once divided a kingdom. That is why Teresa wanted me dead, Amara said.
Because if alive, he can challenge everything.
She feared your bloodline.
Kero whispered. Just like Jomo Firmin.
They stood in silence.
Two broken air. Two flames rising from the ashes of betrayal.
And then together, they made a vow. Not just to survive, but to return. To reclaim. To reveal the truth that had been buried by time, lies, and a river that had witnessed it all. But they were not alone. Outside the cave, a shadow moved. The tracker had found them. And behind him, deeper in the trees, something ancient stirred. Not human. Not spirit. Something that had waited centuries to rise again. Because the river never forgets. And the debt of blood was yet unpaid. The cave felt different now, quieter, as if the air itself held its breath.
Amara sat by the fire, staring into the flame. Kero slept behind her.
The fever finally broken, but his body still fragile. His strength was returning. Slowly, but so was the danger. The river outside murmured in its ancient tongue. Amara listened to it, like she had done all her life. But tonight, it felt familiar. Intimate.
Like it knew her.
She remembered a face, a woman's face, blurry.
Hidden behind time and memory.
Not Teresa. Someone else. Someone with gentle eyes and a necklace shaped like a serpent eating its tail. You are marked, child, the voice had once said.
The river will never take you.
It knows its own. Amara's fingers moved unconsciously to her wrist.
The birthmark there coiled and twisting like a wave.
She had always thought it strange. She had always thought herself strange. And she was right. That night, as Cairo rested, Amara stepped out into the mist and walked to the water's edge. She knelt.
Tell me what I am.
She whispered. The current swirled. And in its surface, something stirred. A shape, a woman draped in water and shadow, rose in the reflection.
Eyes like obsidian, hair like phalanrin.
She did not speak. But Amara felt it. A flood of images.
A memory notaire. A secret birth in a hidden chamber.
A royal crest burned onto a wooden cradle.
A woman screaming. A man ordering silence.
And then the baby, her given to a servant to disappear.
Amara gasped.
She fell back.
At punding, lung aching forer.
The river had answered. She was not just a survivor. She was of the first lineage.
Back in the cave, Kéros tired.
His dreams were darker now. He saw the knife again. Felt it slide between his ribs. But this time, the face behind the blade was clearer.
Jomo. Not a soldier. Not a stranger.
His cousin. Cairo jolted upright.
Cougingard.
Amara rushed to his side. What is it? She asked. He clutched her wrist. I remember. I know who did it. It was Jomo. Amara's eyes narrowed. Then you can name him. They will never believe me without proof. Cairo said. The council is loyal to the throne. Not to truth. Then we find someone who can force the truth into the light. She said. He looked at her with newfound intensity. I was not meant to survive. But you are the reason I did. Amara, who are you really?
Amara hésitated. She touched the mark on her wrist.
I am not sure yet, she said. But I think the river is trying to remind me. At that same moment, miles away, Teresa stared at a torn page from a royal ledger, one she had stolen years ago. On it, a name crossed out in ink that had faded over time.
Amarante.
A child supposedly born still. Daughter of Queen Niara. Grandchild of the River Queen herself. If the girl was alive. If that bloodline had survived. Then everything, her marriage, her son's claim, her safety would be forfeit.
Teresa screamed and tore the page apart.
She must die, she hissed. No matter what it costs. The tracker she had sent Oren, a beast of a man with eyes like ash, was already close. He had found the cave.
Seen the footprint.
Smelled the smoke. He waited until nightfall. Then he moved. Amara and Cairo were asleep when the first branch snapped outside.
She woke first.
Something was wrong. She reached for the small blade she kept near the fire. Moved to the cave entrance. Listened.
Breathe in the dark.
Then steel.
She blocked just in time. The assassin's blade grazing her shoulder.
She rolled, kicked, screamed.
Kero woke, saw the shadow moving.
Reached for a rock, and slammed it into the attacker's side. Oren growled.
Not human, something more.
He lunged. Amara stabbed him in the thigh. The cave became chaos, firelight flickering.
Shadow dancing, blood-eating stone.
But they were two. And he was only one. Cairo, weakened but fierce,
managed to plunge the dagger, the royal dagger, into the man's side.
Oren gasped, stumbled back, and fled into the trees, bleeding, snarling, vowing to return. Silence returned. They stood in the mess of their small refuge.
Breathing guard.
He was sent to kill me, Cairo said. No, Amara said, shaking. He was sent to kill both of us. The next morning, Amara knew they had no more time. The cave, the river, the safety, it was all behind them now. They had to run.
Kero,
though still healing, nodded. But as they packed, he turned to her. You still have not told me what the river showed you. She hesitated. Then, I am not who I thought I was. He studied her. Then who are you? She looked toward the east,
where the capital sat beneath the mountains.
Her eyes burned with something new purpose. I think I am the one they tried to erase. Far away, in the deepest chamber of the palace, Jomo sat in a dark room lit by a single torch. Oren's bloodied message had arrived.
The girl lives. The prince breath.
Jomo clenched his fists. Then turned to the man standing in the shadows behind him. It is time, he said. Bring out the Red Guard.
Burn every village along the forbidden river.
Leave nothing, the shadow bowed. And the war for truth began. They traveled by night. The forest beyond the forbidden river was thicker, older than any Amara had known. Trees twisted in impossible shapes, their roots pulsing like veins.
The moonlight barely touched the passerelle.
And even the animals seemed to hold their breath as the two fugitives passed. Cairo leaned on her for support, still recovering from his wounds. But his mind was sharp. And Amara had changed. There was a stillness in her now. A power brewing beneath her skin, as if the river had left something behind in her veins. They were heading toward Ruhania, an outlaw settlement near the cliffs. Cairo had allies, their mercenaries and outcasts loyal not to the crown, but to truth. He hoped some still lived. But what they found upon arrival shattered that hope.
Smoke curled into the sky.
Ashes scattered like snowflakes. The village was gone. Burned. Bodies charred.
Face melted into the earth.
Amara dropped to her knees.
What kind of monster? Jomo, Kero whispered.
Fists clenched. He is sending a message. But among the ruins, one woman still breathed, an elder.
Blind, her lips cracked with tears.
Amara gave her water, cradled her trembling hands.
The woman clutched Amara's face.
Her blind eyes widened, seeing through other means. You
were her face.
She rasped. You carry her fire. Whose? Amara asked, stunned.
Nyara, the river queen.
Your mother. The old woman died with a smile on her face. Amara stood, shaken to the core. I am her daughter, she whispered. Cairo took a step back.
Brice coughed.
Then you.
You are the last true heir.
No, she said. I am not just heir. I am the threat they feared. They buried the woman. Then they moved. Meanwhile, in the capital, Teresa stood before Jomo. Her face was pale, lips thin. You said it was done, she hissed. She survived, he said coldly. And now she knows who she is. Teresa's mind raced. Then we must kill the story before it spreads. But Jomo was not listening. He stared out the stained glass window,
where the river gleamed in the distance.
She is not just a girl anymore, he said. She is awakening.
That night, Amara dreamed again.
She stood in a temple made of water and mist. In the center, a woman waited. Tall.
Regal.
Her skin shimmered like obsidian under moonlight.
Queen Nyara.
Her mother. Amara fell to her knees. Why did not you keep me? She asked. Nyara's voice echoed like wind through trees. Because I needed you to become more than royalty. I needed you to understand pain.
Silence. Shadow. Tears fell from Amara's eyes.
I was nothing, no, said the queen.
You were the river in flesh. And now, child. The blood shall remember.
She raised her hand. A serpent of silver water coiled up Amara's arm, seeping into her veins.
Amara screamed. Then woke brittle.
Wet with sweat. But her wrist, the birthmark, had changed. It glowed faintly. A sign.
A summoning.
2 days later, Amara and Cairo reached the edge of the sacred basin, the place where the river elders once held court. Now abandoned, covered in vines and dust. But not empty. 3 figures waited. Elders in gray robes. Eyes ancient and unblinking. They had been watching her. Waiting.
You bear the mark.
The tallest said. I need answers. Amara said. Then enter the circle. The elder replied. And take the blood oath. Cairo moved to follow her. But the elder raised a hand.
Only the blood of the river may pass.
Amara looked at him.
He will come back.
He nodded. I trust you. And for the first time. He meant it.
Inside the circle, the air thickened.
Symbols glowed.
Water rose from the stone floor.
Surrounding her, lifting her into the air.
Vision flashed before her eyes. Her mother, Jivin burst under the star. Teresa stealing the child in the night. A sacred prophecy, the girl of water and fire shall return when the kingdom row.
And Jomo. Murdering the old king with poison. Replacing him with a puppet. Amara screamed as the truth seared into her.
When she landed, trembling.
The elders stood waiting. Do you accept the oath? One asked. I do, then you are no longer Amara the orphan. They bowed. You are Amaranth of the river, last heir of Niara, chosen by water and flame. She emerged from the temple different.
Her eyes briquetèrent. Her voice firmée.
Cairo saw her and stood.
Briscogt.
What happened in there? She looked at him.
Everything changed. But far away, Jomo knelt before a darker power. In the crypt beneath the palace.
He had opened a forbidden tomb. A skeletal figure awaited wrapped in black silk, surrounded by bones.
The girl returns.
Jomo said.
I need your power.
The figure extended a hand of ash and dust. Then you must give what she cannot. Jomo nodded, and slit his own palm.
Blood dripping onto the stone. Lightning cracked across the sky that night.
And the river turned red for the first time in 100 years.
The night fell like a blade.
In the distance, the capital city of Vandara glowed with unease fires in the marketplace.
Soldiers marching ticked their formation. And strange whisper read in the wind.
People said the river had turned red. Crops were wilting. Babies cried without cause. And in the shadow of the palace,
something woke.
Amara stood at the mouth of the sacred gorge, the wind tugging at her cloak. Behind her, over 50 rebels gathered outcasts. Villagers, old soldiers who once served Queen Niara before Jomo's coup. Their armor was mismatched, their weapons rusty, but their eyes burned with hope. Beside her, Cairo tightened the straps on his arm guard. You do not have to lead this, he said quietly. You have done enough. Amara looked at him, eyes clear. This is not just about me anymore. It is about every daughter sold, every child silenced,
every trousse buried in the river.
She raised her voice to the crowd. They fear our voice because they know we remember.
Tonight, we take back the water. Tonight, the river flows for us.
The rebels roared. And the march began.
Inside the palace, Jomo stood before the black mirror, the forbidden relic stolen from the river Temple long ago.
His hand throbbed where he would bled for the dark oath. Around him, priests of shadow whispered, binding the ancient spell with his soul. You must kill her with your own hand, the specter said. Only then can the crown be sealed in darkness. Jomo's face was pale, but steady.
She will come.
She already has, a voice replied from behind. He turned. And there she was, Amara. Eyes like stormlight. The battle had begun outside. The rebels clashed with royal guards.
Fire lit the palace walls. Scream and steel ran through the hall.
Amara stepped forward. Alone. But not unarmed. She raised her hand and from the air, a blade of liquid silver formed. Shaped by her will, the power of the river in her blood.
Jomo looked. You are nothing but a stolen child.
No, she said.
I am Niara's doctor.
And you are a coward. He lunged.
Stil met water.
They fought through the shattered hall, between broken stained glass images of kings past.
Amara was swift, dancing like the river.
Jomo was brutal, striking with the weight of years in power. She slashed his chest, but he stabbed her shoulder. Blood soaked her sleeve. But she did not fall.
Outside, Kero led the final charge into the throne room.
Fighting through the guards to reach her. But the dark priests began chanting. The sky turned black. The specter emerged no longer a shadow, but a towering figure of smoke and bone, its mouth full of fire.
Kero screamed, Amara.
She turned bleeding, breath ragged but raised her hand. She called the river. Not just water. Memory. From every corner of the land, the rivers surged. The palace cracked.
Fountain shattered.
Water flowed up the walls.
And in it, voices.
The voices of the murdered.
The mother.
The children.
The truth. Jomo's spell shattered.
The specter shrieked, then was pulled into the water, devoured by the flood of truth. Amara faced Jomo one last time. He crawled, eyes wide. Please. Mercy. I raised you. She stared at him. And whispered, No. You buried me, then turned away. The river surged and took him.
The aftermath.
The floodwater retreated as dawn broke.
The palace stood broken.
But free.
Villager gatred at the gates.
And from the balcony, Amara appeared cloaked in white.
Kero by your side.
She did not claim a throne. Instead, she gave it to the people. She created a council of voices. Farmers, teachers, healers.
Warriors.
A rule not of crowns but of memory. And every year, on the day the river turned red,
The people gatred to whisper one name. Nyara. And one more. Amara.
the girl who was betrayed, the woman who returned.
The river that never forgo. Final scene.
1 year later,
In a quai village far from the capital.
a little girl played by a stream. She paused, and the water whispered to her. A song. A name. She smiled.
The river remembered.
And always would.